Happy Monday, English 149. This is Grant. I hope you had a really great long weekend, and it's been really amazing to see your covers for your videos / books. They've been absolutely amazing. I've been blown away with the creativity. I just love them. So thank you so much for doing that. I hope you found it helpful to start to begin to Photoshop things. But what I want to do is just spend a little time talking about your projects now that you have the first step in creating those projects. Okay, so our big project for this class is going to be a video, right? And the reason why I've picked that is I think in multimodal composition, the video utilizes so many different aspects. It utilizes recording audio, images, sometimes video. That's going to be optional for you. Metadata, titling, storyboarding, all of these things. Okay, so the way that I see this project working itself out is you can basically take two roads. Okay, so first road is going to be in the genre of a video essay. Okay, and the second genre is going to be like a fan fiction video. Okay, so you've already seen a couple video essays, right? The Lindsay Ellis, the Nerd Writer, right? And the video essay you can do, about like one fan fiction text, right? You can do that, or you could do maybe like a platform, right? Like Wattpad or fanfic.net, right? Or you could do it like on a particular fan fiction like Harry Potter, or you could do it on a type, right? Like fan insert or reader insert. Okay. I think that's not an exhaustive list, but it's going to be about some aspect of fan fiction. Okay, so you're gonna need to think about screencasting, or you could just take screenshots, right, to get some of the media for this one. Fan fiction video. You can either kind of like shoot and create your own. That's going to probably be the most difficult. You could create a trailer for like a potential movie, and you can reuse movies that are already been made about your text, but like put text in. So you could say like whatever, Hermione, and then show like a video of Draco, and then have text, right? Like, what if they got together? So you can put text in to reframe the video that's already made, so you can kind of create a fan fiction trailer or story out of doing something like that, right? Or again, if you really are feeling up to it, you could shoot and create your own. You could also draw and kind of, animate, or draw and just have voiceovers. There's really multiple ways you can do this. So I hope that helps you think about, as you go into this project, what you want to do. Now, any step along the way, we're going to we just finished the first feeder, which is like the cover, right? So that's going to act as like, you know, if I click on your fan fiction or video essay on YouTube, that's what I'm going to see. So the next one we're going to do this week is a storyboard. And this is very similar to outlining, if you're familiar with traditional forms of writing. So again, the cover is meant to be your kind of brainstorm, right? The feeder to the storyboard is meant to kind of outline and create like a more cohesive vision of what you're thinking of, right? And we're going to go over that. So it's going to be like what images and what points you're going to say underneath those images, okay? Does that make sense? And so then, you know, what we'll start to get into is, you know, these things together will start to form the basis of your video, right? The feeders are meant to be small portions to create the video, okay? And so what I want you to do is think about like how do you break down things into their components in order to make them easier to create, okay? So that's kind of like the trajectory that we're going to do is we're going to do small little projects to help you. Now along the way, if you decide, you know what, instead of a video essay, I want to do a fan fiction or vice versa, that's fine. You're not entering in a contract with me. I just want you to think about how to compose in different ways, right? So again, we talked about in cover, you know, what the visual aspect really tells you about the audience, about the content, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. So like you can think of also this as a framing, and this is the text, right? So that's what I'm just going to get you into in multimodal composition, is composing in different forms, visual, textual, and combining those together. And once you've thought individually about those parts, right, like the activity I had you do last week, you can really think about how to exploit the affordances of your particular platform, okay? So that's kind of our stuff. Now, what I have you watching today is a scholar that I really respect. Her book is on my dissertation list. It's called Telling It Like It Wasn't. And she was at Duke almost 10 years ago now, and she was delivering a talk that was the basis of this book. This book was only published a couple years ago. And she's probably the most influential contemporary lyric scholar. And you're gonna see in the video, Telling It Like It Wasn't is basically like the fiction that we write to say, well, what if, you know, a common one is what if the Germans won World War II, right? And creating a genre fiction like that. And what I want you to think about is how is that different from fan fiction, okay? So, you know, there's a couple different texts in the same genre, right? So historical fiction, right? For Gallagher, it's like telling it like it wasn't is kind of this new form, right? There's science fiction, right? So the different ways of doing this, and we can say fan fiction. Okay. So this is where the commentary comes in. So historical fiction typically goes into the past, right? But it says something about the present. Okay. So, you know, great examples of this, I have to say, are The Favorite from last year. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. It's about 18th century Britain and how it's very similar to the way that American politics is right now. So it's going to the past to say something about the present. Okay? Telling it like it wasn't is remaking the past to say, again, something about the present, right? Like, even if some things changed, what would be the same? And that says something about our society now. Science fiction goes basically to the future, right? But it says something about the present. Okay, these are different ways of commenting on our society. And so that's where I say fan fiction would be really interesting to go to a different text to say something about that text or the present. Okay? So what I want you to think about is all of these kind of just go to different places in order to do commentary. So why are certain forms more or less legitimate than others, right? I'd say historical fiction for a lot of people has an extra weight because it has that tether to reality. So does telling it like it wasn't, right? And Gallagher talks about the Plot Against America and Man in the High Castle, right? And the reason why I want you to revisit them is when she was writing this book, those were texts, but now they're TV shows, okay? And so there's something here about this genre that's kind of contemporary and really important. So like, what happens when, we move this stuff into TV show, right? It's going to need to say something about TV, okay? And Watchmen's kind of another example of this, right? What if a different president, what if Nixon never got booted out of office? Black Panther, right? What if Africa had a resource that was more advanced and more important than the rest of the world, right? So there's all these kind of different ways of telling it like it wasn't. And that the fact that all of this is moving into a visual medium, I want you to think about that. So this is where I think, if fan fiction really doesn't have too much of a visual aspect, what if we move this stuff into the visual, right? Like the rest of these texts are. And what might that do to legitimize fan fiction? Okay, so the Catherine Gallagher video, it's just like a preview for what her talk is. So it's just 10 minutes. It shouldn't be too much. For, optional, you could read her book, but you don't have to do that for a class. It's a very good book. She's at Berkeley. She's one of the best literary scholars. So if you have time, you can. So this week, we're really going to get into thinking about some concepts that I think are really important for talking about fan fiction. So we're going to look at a philosophical concept tonight. We're going to look at what's called trans-world identity, and it's tied up with historical fiction and like telling it like it wasn't, where you can recognize the historical character, but also be able to see them in new situations. Just like kind of fan fiction, right? Where you have the canonical character and then you have them in new situations, right? Where those two identities somehow are different but also the same, okay? So that's what we're going to be reading tonight. I will be giving you your feedback on your feeder ones later today. And I also, just one last thing, podcasts. Your classmates have been really wonderful with their podcast conversation so far. So if you go to the bottom of the podcast page, you're going to see other podcasts from your classmates. So please take a look at that if you're unsure of what we're doing in those podcasts. But I think you're going to see it's a really good venue to think about and brainstorm ideas about parts of fan fiction that really interest you. So thank you. Have a wonderful Monday. Email me if you have any questions. Again, tonight I'm going to hold a optional recitation, so please join if you want to be a part of that. Thank you. Have a wonderful Monday.